Greetings, I'm Catherine of Sky, and I hope to make your day refreshingly Swedish. So today I'm going to do a reaction to a video called Reverse Culture Shocks Returning to America After Moving to Australia. And this is by Ashley Faye Vlogs. Go and check out their channel and give them some love. Because I wanted to compare my experience as a former American. So when I was living in America, I grew up there my entire life, and I would travel back and forth to Sweden to visit my boyfriend. I would visit Norway, visit my other friends there. And it was always an interesting experience going back to America, because even though I would stay for, up to 4 weeks at a time, I had severe reverse culture shock when I got back. So I really want to check out this video and see how it compares to my experience. All right, so let's get into it.
Hello, welcome back to the channel.
Hello.
I am back in Australia. I just realized so many things that just made me really uncomfortable or made me feel really...
That's a really interesting word that she says, uncomfortable. I can definitely relate to that. I mean, it starts when you get into the airport and people say hello. I mean, that's where the reverse culture shock happened for me, where I would land in Denver and people would speak to me and they had this very sort of broad American accent. And it was like, oh, I'm in another universe again. Oh, dear. And then it just continued for me, like the air smelled wrong. The water tasted wrong. I mean, water that I've been drinking like for 20 years at that point when I lived in Wyoming, like my well water, it was great. I loved it, but it tasted wrong when I got back. It was very weird.
Out of place going back to the US that previously never was an issue.
Yeah, never was an issue.
Culture shocks. So these
totally
are my reverse culture shocks of going back to the US after moving to Australia. So this trip home, more than anything, I find it interesting that she says this trip home. That kind of hit me weird, because it feels like I don't know this creator at all, but it feels like if she's been living in Australia for a long time, isn't that home? Like, I know that when I moved, even before I moved, I never felt that the U.S. was home. Like, once I discovered other countries that were more compatible with my being and my own personal culture, I was like, I want to get the heck out of America. America isn't home for me anymore. Realized how extreme the tipping culture has gotten.
Oh gosh,
so
yes.
I knew that the tipping culture has become a bit more, I don't know if aggressive is the right word.
Oppressive is a good word.
Years, since the pandemic. Like when I was growing up, I was told like, okay, if someone gives you amazing service, like table service or something like that, 10%. And then
it's interesting. I kind of grew up with a different feel on that, and she's younger than I am, I think. Just looking at her on the video, I grew up with, if a person gives good service, it doesn't have to be amazing. You are expected to tip whatever the heck kind of service you get. And I was taught that 15% is the minimum and 20% is good, and not 10%. 10% is like really low. I think you'd get angry looks if you gave 10%. So I'm surprised that she says this, because I'm older than she is, and I grew up with that from a very young age. Also, you could do this thing where you tip like a dime or 50 cents or something, and that tells the waiter you were really unhappy with their service. But I've never done that myself. I always thought, these people are struggling and just tip them anyway, whatever the service, which I think is a bad way to do things, because if they get tips, then they just continue the bad service. So, yeah.
Went into uni, with inflation and everything, went to 15, and then post-pandemic, at least where I was from in the US, it was 20%. And leaving the US beginning of 2022, I had no qualms about it. I was like, nope, this is the norm. You tip for this. And even going back to the US, because I've been back to the US a couple times since I've moved over to Australia, and it's like stood out to me a little bit, but I kind of just like put off the side, like, you know, I grew up used to it, so it's not that big of a deal. But I don't know what it was this time around that the tipping just felt so out of control.
It is out of control.
I've never been chased out of a bar aggressively for
Wow.
being told that I didn't tip enough.
Oh
when
my
in
gosh,
opinion,
that's aggressive.
I felt that I was
I've never
receiving
seen that
zero
before.
service at all. I had to go find my own glasses. I had to go find the bottle
What?
of wine. The customer gave it to me. And then a random person, I don't know if they worked at the bar, followed me and my brother across the street.
That is
and
scary,
approached
man.
us
That sounds
and
scary.
was calling us mean names.
Wow. So, okay, so I have never seen that before. If I have ever gone to a restaurant and the waiter is supposed to bring you stuff, they bring you stuff. You're not supposed to go up and get your own bottle of wine. That sounds outrageous to me. However, I have seen, I guess you could call it low effort tips or something like that, where you go to, and this drove me crazy, like in the mall, just like philosophically drove me crazy. You go to the mall at a restaurant in the mall, not a restaurant, but fast food place, right? You wait in line, they take your order, they serve you the food in the fast food line. You do not sit at a table, you do not get anything brought to a table. You're just in the line, but yet they have a tip jar and or they do the whole like credit card tipping thing, where I guess they just feel like it doesn't hurt anything, where they just, hey, would you like to give us a tip? And I'm thinking, why am I giving you a tip for just doing a basic job, right? Because that's literally their job. What they're supposed to do is take your order, make your food, and hand it to you in a bag. That is not worth tipping. I was always taught that tipping is service, as in wait staff comes to the table and it should be good service, as in they ask you if you want another drink or they pick up your dishes. That was a big problem when I moved to Wyoming, is like all of a sudden the waiters were like, they don't pick up your dishes. It's like you have all these dirty dishes on the table and you're still trying to eat, and it's just weird. Kind of gross, kind of weird, you know? But yeah, if the waiters would check on your drinks, for example, or bring your iced tea without having been asked, that deserves a better tip. But yeah, I don't even understand her experience, like having to get your own bottle of wine. What? That is weird.
And that's just never happened to me before. And it's really jarring going from Australian culture back to American culture, that's for sure. Like another example is I was at the airport and it was a self-serve kiosk, and I scanned my own item. I was paying at the F-Boss machine, and it was like, do you want a tip? And I'm like, but who am I tipping? I went and I got the item. I'm scanning my item. There's not even like workers, like
there's not even a person there.
Make sure if anyone had any questions or like if there's technical issues, like there's really no one. I'm like, who am I tipping? Am I tipping a robot? Like, I'm genuinely confused. And
tipping a robot, I like that idea.
Now in the US that I experienced and stuff. And I also want to preface, I completely understand that there are still so many industries in the US that are severely underpaid. Well,
now that's definitely a true thing. The underpaid industries. So I'll talk about a couple of things here. So in the U.S., the tipping culture is crazy, and comparing that to Sweden, where I live now, I even asked, my boyfriend, like, who do you tip here? Because in America, you tip a lot of people. You tip your restaurants. You might even tip the fast food. You tip delivery drivers. You tip hairdressers, taxis sometimes, and a whole variety of other people. That in Sweden, that is just not a thing. Literally the only people you tip in Sweden are nice restaurant people for good service. I think they do include some gratuity, but you can tip them extra if you want to. But yeah, in America, it's crazy. Everybody wants a tip. I even had a situation where I was ordering groceries delivered to my home, and I lived out in the country, so it was quite a ways away. And you'd think, okay, you pay a delivery fee because you had to pay the fee, right? But I noticed if I didn't tip, mysteriously, no one would deliver my groceries. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I paid for these groceries. How are they not getting delivered? And I had that come up a couple of times. So the delivery fee was around $10, and I had to pay an extra $25 in tips just to get them to come, which I think is just outrageous. Like, how is that even a thing? If you order groceries, they should come. The delivery drivers should be paid for that. And what she says at the end about people not being paid, that's absolutely true. A lot of minimum wage for wait servers can be like $3 an hour. No joke. It's absolutely sad and crazy. So what they do is the owners of the restaurants get away with this by saying, okay, we'll pay you a minimum of $3 an hour and the rest you get in tips. So it supposedly encourages their wait staff to be polite and friendly and hopefully earn tips. But, you might have customers that are not happy, or they're just having a bad day and they don't tip. Or maybe they work in a restaurant that's like a really low volume restaurant. Not a lot of people come there. So I think that it's horrible. I think that they should pay people fairly. Like in Sweden, they pay everybody fairly. There is nobody in Sweden that needs to work 2 or 3 jobs. Everybody can work one job and live because everybody is paid fairly. And I think the US can really learn from that. So let's keep on going.
Unanimously worldwide, but specifically in reference to like the service industry in the US, I completely understand. And 99% of the time, I don't have an issue tipping. But I think now it's just become so out of control.
It is out of control,
and
yeah.
It's really overwhelming. Number 2, just the service.
I was just going to say, I feel like, to go and just top that off is like with the rise of, the mini card kiosks, those programmable ones where they have like a little tablet, that I think every single one of them has thought, hey, why not just add a tip? Why not? What's it going to hurt? And I think what it hurts is your reputation and how people perceive your business. I've seen even tipping offered or tipping requested at department stores. And that is just like way too far for me.
Industry in general is so different. The level of service, like going off the tipping thing, on top of the increased frequency of tipping in the US, I also feel like the service has just gone down.
Okay, interesting.
Severely, like the standard of service, which again, to play devil's advocate, I understand and agree that service workers in the US very much so deserve to get paid more, but also I just feel like in Australia, the minimum service standard, as a result maybe of the increased wages comparatively, the service standards are just so much higher. Let me know if you...
That's an interesting point. I don't want to generalize about America because it is a vast country. And I personally noticed a service standard difference just moving from one place to another. I used to live in the Houston area in Texas, and there's a lot of competition for wait staff jobs. And so, you would get your dishes cleared and offered drinks, whatever, all the time. When I moved to Wyoming, oh my God, you had to ask people to take your dishes away. It's like it never even occurred to them. You had to ask for drinks. You had to just like I would just like, I didn't want to ask or like flag somebody down. So I'd like put my empty glass on the edge of the table, hoping they would notice. That is so stupid. I remember this being a thing though. Like that was just a thing. And I can't really compare to Sweden because I haven't been to that many fancy places. We went to one restaurant, like really nice restaurant, and the service was excellent. But it's interesting to hear her perspective on Australia because I don't know anything about Australian, restaurant service standards and whatnot. I would kind of expect that maybe they would have high standards because there's a lot of tourism to Australia, and Americans tend, like if they're American tourists, they tend to expect a higher level of service for sure. So that's really interesting to hear what she has to say there.
Have noticed that too if you've been to both the US and Australia and have noticed differences in just like the service standards. Like I commented on this last time I went home to the US, and I think I was just not far from where I'm from in New Jersey, and there was like a kiosk that it was like a self-serve kiosk at a coffee shop, and it kind of took me aback that the person behind the counter like didn't even greet me, didn't even look my way. I was just at like the self-serve kiosk and then asked for a tip, and I was like, I mean, I tipped, but I kind of felt a bit uncomfortable. I don't know, I would have just
that's weird. If they don't greet you, I wouldn't tip them. No way.
Or like looked up from your phone. I don't know, maybe I'm just being like really nitpicky, or maybe we're just really spoiled here in Australia with genuinely how lovely most service experiences are
Nice.
here. But next up.
Yeah, and I would say that's very variable. I wouldn't even begin to generalize about the US on that, because I think that your service standards will vary wildly depending on where you are, even within the same city. You know, you can have better restaurants with better servers, and you can have worse places where people are staring at their phone and don't even say hi to you. So I think that varies quite a bit. And as far as going around in Sweden, I can say that there are people who, when you go to a shop, like I said, I haven't been to many fine restaurants, but if you go to a shop, there are people who will greet you as soon as you walk in. And usually those are the longtime employees or the owners of the shop. But if you have like a teenager there, or they're there for a summer job, yeah, they can be staring at their phones. I think that's a level of maturity, though. I haven't had many adults not greet me when I go to a shop or say hi or whatever. So yeah, I don't think it's good to generalize on that. I think it's very variable depending on where you're experiencing the service.
Reverse culture shocks. Cafe culture. Woo! Again, I've commented on this in the past, but the fact that in Australia it is so custom in so many cafes, the barista brings you your drink and you don't have to clean the table yourself afterwards, whereas in the US, most cafes that I've been to, it's custom that you go up and get the drink yourself. And then
yeah, I guess she's talking about Starbucks. In the US, there is no cafe culture. There really isn't a cafe culture other than you go to Starbucks. I don't know about cleaning tables yourself. I think that it's customary at any fast food restaurant. If you stay, you pick up your trash and you throw it out. But you don't, like if you spill a drink, you don't have to go and get a sponge or stuff like that. I don't think. I don't know. This sounds really weird to me.
You bust the table yourself, there's bus bins, and some places even have like sanitizer bottles and cloths to wipe down the table yourself.
Wow.
And also to preface, in the US has a tipping culture as well. So
yeah, and maybe she is talking about an actual cafe. I don't know. It sounds like if you have bus bins, that means you have real dishes. And so I have not been to a cafe like that in the US. That's just not been a thing that I ever went to. Like I think with fast food, you throw out, paper dishes and containers and stuff, but I have not actually been to a cafe in the US. But in Europe, for sure, the people will bring your drink and your food to the table, and they will clean up the table. I'm thinking about several cafes near me, because cafe culture is definitely a thing here in Sweden. And I don't think I've even seen a trash can. I haven't seen a bus bin, which is like, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, it's like a plastic dish or a plastic bin that you put dirty dishes in. And then, whenever it's full, the people will take it back to the back of the restaurant and fix it. But yeah, I haven't seen anything like that in Sweden. It is definitely not expected.
I first posted about this, a lot of people were like, well, what are you tipping for if you're cleaning the table yourself?
Yeah, what are you tipping for exactly?
I'm open-ended. Please comment below. It's just, I don't know, I just felt like this time going home, it was really disheartening, because I just feel so much more welcome and at home here in Australia.
Yeah.
And especially as time has passed, going back home, like I kind of It doesn't.
Yeah, it's so weird. She says, I feel at home in Australia, and then going back home. Where do you live, girl? Like, for me, it was a definite switch. Like, I no longer think of the US as my home. Like, don't think of it at all. I mean, I am in Sweden. This is my home, period. So I find that really strange when she says that. But I have felt the same way. You know, I felt like it's really alien. A lot of the things, I think because in America, I feel like a lot of the things are quite, not inhumane. That's a good word, maybe, like not compatible with human life, values, existence. It's very inhumane. It's not civilized. It's savage, as Matthias would say. Absolutely savage. A lot of the things, you realize a lot about America when you leave it. You don't really see it when you're there because there's this brainwash bubble thing that's around you in America. But once you leave it, you're like, how do those people even survive? Because of just crazy stuff like she's been talking about. It's nuts. Okay, well, it looks like we're about a third through the video. I think we'll have to do this one in several parts because obviously I have a lot to say. So I really enjoyed looking at this video. So yeah, if you have any videos you would like me to react to or respond to or whatever, just please fill out the form in the description below. Thank you so very much for joining me. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you next time.